Good evening, everybody. Welcome along. Welcome to Space Dave Live, episode number 28. My name is Dave. Let's welcome in our studio audience tonight. Look at all these beautiful people come along to support us again. Now you'll notice that there's a couple of changes out there in the audience tonight. We're sort of moving things around, trying a few technical things here. What we're doing is we're pursuing this idea of getting more people to help us out with the actual production of the show. So we've got Jess and Ellen over there, and Wendy and Steph over in the back, all helping out in various ways. So it's all a little bit of a mess out there. Sorry about that. That's because, as usual, everything was a blind panic this afternoon trying to get everything ready, and I did not have time to worry about niceties like cleaning up cables. Now, as far as I can see, everything seems to be working this week, unlike last week. So I think our audio is going fine and everything is working. Let's have a quick look in our chat. Actually, no, I can see that there is nothing happening there at the moment yet. Has anyone posted anything on YouTube yet from your guys' point of view? Doesn't look like it. Okay, look, if anyone wants to say hi and just post a quick comment on either of those channels, that would be awesome. It's looking to me like Facebook, yet again, is not playing ball, but hopefully we'll get some action with the YouTube.
I've got action.
Oh, you have? Okay, so there's something happening. So it looks like Facebook, as you know, we have a lot of trouble trying to connect with Facebook and make things happen there. Let's just have a quick look at our chat here, and as you can see, it's just not happening. Never mind, we're not going to worry about it. We need to get on with things. So let's have a look at our program to get things started. This is what's happening tonight. So after the introduction and competition and whatnot, we're going to do In the Night Sky first tonight, because we've got some stuff that I definitely want to talk about and I don't want to leave it and forget about it or run out of time. In spaceflight news, we've got a few things. So updates on missions that we've already been talking about, some Moon and Mars mission stuff. And then in astronomy news, we've got some stuff about the solar system, and we're going to be talking a little bit more about some dark matter results, early galaxies, and this whole thing about the universal expansion, and a couple of other things in there as well. So that's pretty much what we have got in store tonight. Let's talk about our competition. It's a little bit related to that. In fact, it is. It's a dark matter question. I want to know, when will we ever figure out what dark matter is? Let me know. I would love to know what the answer to that is. Give us your best guess. Is it going to be next year? Will it be in our lifetime, or never? Or just whatever you think it is. Just your best guess as to when you think we might ever figure out what on Earth is going on with the whole dark matter thing, or dark energy if you want to throw that in as well. But we are talking more about dark matter than dark energy tonight. If you have no idea, just have a guess, then you'll be in the competition. Now, with our competition prize tonight, again, we are trying something slightly different with that. This is all part of the plan to try and make the show just work a little bit more efficiently for us. And we are giving away tonight a gift voucher for mightyape.co.nz. So I'm going to be interested to see how this goes. I would love to hear your thoughts about giving away gift vouchers for things online and how well that would work for you. I thought Mighty Ape was just a good one to get started with, but if you've got any suggestions for other places that might be more useful, I would quite like to offer the option. Just get a gift voucher for one of these half a dozen or dozen or so different websites. So that's what's up for grabs tonight. Just feel free to get in whenever you like and post your entry. Remember, when you're posting an entry to the competition, start it with comp so we know it's an entry for the competition. So that was the competition. And now, speaking of that, actually, last week, you'll remember that Ian Latimer was the winner of our competition, and we've got a special thank you to Ian tonight because he very generously donated his prize back to young John, who was in the audience here, who was stoked. Hey, you had a good night here, didn't you, John? You went away with a little bit of a haul with the mission patch and the prize, so it was very much appreciated. Thank you for that, Ian. Remember, if you want to support the show, you can do so on Patreon. There's the address there, or let us know if you would like to support us in some other way. One other thing from last week, our competition question was about the countdown video. What did you think about that? That seemed to be pretty unanimous. Everyone wanted to, or almost everyone wanted to keep the countdown video as it is. I'd still be keen to know how long you think the countdown video should be, how much time you need, because I think it is useful to keep it as short as possible. Yeah, so if you want to comment on that, please feel free to do so. While I think about it, if you're commenting on anything to do at all with the questions and discussion that we're having throughout the show, just think about whether it's useful to provide some context with your comment. Sometimes, for example, we ask a random question like this one. Let's ask this question. What's that thing? Feel free to go ahead and tell us what you think that is that we are looking at there. But it's quite useful when I ask random questions like this, or for some information, if you can actually say, I think that photo is such and such, or the answer to such and such question is this. It just makes it a little bit easier, especially when I'm going back after the show to know what goes with what. I think that's all the housekeeping we had to talk about. So just let us know, guys, if anyone answers this question and wants to have a stab at what that thing is that we are looking at there. I want to talk about what's happening in the night sky. Here's Stellarium, our planetarium software that lets us look at what's happening in the night sky, and that is actually looking at, it is about 1 hour from now, okay, looking out towards the west. What we need to do is we need to zoom in and see what we are looking at there. So, well, first of all, up there you can see we've got a new moon, or a few days old, but very thin crescent moon over there, and of course if we look down here we can see Mercury and Venus. So those have been big features in the evening sky of late. If you follow us on Facebook, which I assume you do, and you certainly should if you're not, then you would have seen hopefully a post I did a few days ago to go out and have a look at those planets, because they're looking quite spectacular in the evening. There's my landline going. That's never a good sign. No one ever rings me at this time of night on my landline unless it's bad news. So thanks for taking that. So if we look out towards the west, we can see Mercury and Venus down there, the moon, as I say, and Jupiter and Saturn over there. Jupiter's reasonably bright, Saturn's a lot fainter, but hopefully you will find them. Now, so this is right after the show. Right after the show, you need to get outside and go and have a look at it. I think, oh, it's clouded over a bit now, actually, but hopefully you'll get a bit of a look at that. This is a really good time to be going out and looking for the brightest things in the sky. The brighter planets will be coming out before the stars, and so it's really helpful and a good time to be trying to spot those things. Mercury's not usually a particularly easy planet to find, but right at the moment it's really not too bad, especially being close to bright Venus over there. So that's what it looks like tonight, and you can sort of see, if we just sort of step forward one day at a time, what's happening over the coming days. Mercury is continuing to set lower and will become very difficult to see and impossible quite soon. Venus is still rising a little bit, but that is what's happening there. Now, what's the date today? It's the 30th, isn't it? So we're back to tonight. Another thing that I want to look at, so we were looking out to the west there to see those planets. Let's go right round the other side to the east, where we won't really be able to see much yet. So we'll go forward in time a little bit, just another hour or so should do it. Let's get rid of some of that other stuff. We don't really need the meteor showers and things. And you'll see over there, sort of east-northeast, is our good friend, everyone knows how to pronounce the name of that planet, eh? Uranus. So Uranus is actually at opposition at the moment. So that means it's on the opposite side of the sun. We've got the Earth here, Sun over there, Uranus over this side. And of course, you can see that right from where we are. We looked at the sun over that side. Now we've turned around and we're facing towards Uranus. Now, technically speaking, it's kind of sometimes a visible object with the naked eye and the right conditions with good eyes and everything, but it's probably not really going to be a go for most people with the naked eye. This is really more a binocular or a telescope object to try and go for. So we won't talk too much about how to try and find it, because it is a bit of a drama. But if you get out there with some binoculars, that's sort of going to give you a field of view, something like this. So you could start over here, for example. This is Aries. In fact, let's just bring up the names and the lines so that you can see a little bit better there. So this is the constellation of Aries. There's not much in that constellation really. This would be the brightest star there. So you could start from here and work your way up to Uranus. So if you've got a decent pair of binoculars, or ideally a good telescope, then now is a good time to be trying to have a look at Uranus. Let's just see how Stellarium shows it. Yeah, something like that. I think you can actually even see a couple of its moons there, can't you? There you go. But don't expect to be able to see them with binoculars, I wouldn't think. Anyway, so that's Uranus around in the east-northeast. We had those other planets around in the west, and of course as time goes on, let's just sort of zap forward a little bit, you can see them setting. So sort of by mid-evening or later in the evening, they will be gone. That is something to look forward to tonight and over the next few nights. But there's something else coming up on the 2nd of November that we need to talk about. So let's go forward to the 2nd of November, and I think we need to be, was it around about about 9:15, sorry. So let's just adjust our time there. And we're still looking out in the same general direction out here, but we are looking where are we? At the moon. Let's zoom right in on the moon over here. So this is the second, it's about 9:10 in the evening. What I'm going to do is I'm going to center the moon so it stays in shot while we zoom in a little bit more. And you can see just on the right hand side there, the planet Saturn. Now, there's the planet Saturn there. This is the moon. The dark side there. The planet Saturn is going to be occulted by the moon. So it's going to go behind the moon. If we just step forward sort of a minute at a time, you can see it's coming right up to the moon there. In fact, if you were looking through a decent telescope, you kind of see it something like that. You will be able to see its rings. You can see this, of course, with the naked eye, but of course, you won't be able to see the rings of Saturn, of course. But a decent pair of binoculars, you're still not really going to see the rings of Saturn. You might be able to see it. It's just a bit of an elongated disk. But with a reasonable backyard telescope, you will be able to see the rings of Saturn there. And let's just sort of speed up time a little bit like this, and there it goes, right behind the moon. So you can see that, keep an eye on the time down here, and then if we, oh, actually I shouldn't have done that, should I? Let's just, sorry, I'll just center it again. Doesn't want to. What am I doing wrong? I think I've deselected the moon. That's what I did, didn't I? Sorry about that. Where'd it go? Come back. So let's just try that again. I've gone forward. Actually, no, that's probably about right, actually. It's probably not too bad. If we just speed up time again a little bit now. Maybe a little bit more. There you go. And Saturn comes out the bottom there. So it goes behind the moon, and there you go. Within an hour or so, it comes out the other side. So pretty cool thing to look at. Well worth getting out and giving a blast. If you've got a telescope, great. That's even better. But honestly, even with the naked eye, it's worth getting out there and having a go at that. So that is an occultation of Saturn by the moon coming up in a few days' time. So let us know how you go with that. We'd love to hear your experiences and how easy or difficult you found and what you managed to see. So there you go. Now I see we've got some action on the YouTube chat over here. Facebook, I'm just going to give up on Facebook comments, trying to get them in here. I think I have no idea what's going on there. So anyway, we've got some stuff happening. Let's go out into our social media monitors and see what's happening.
So Janet, and I'm sorry I can't pronounce
Yort, probably. Is that Janet Yort?
Yep. Dave, did you see the man who is going to be tracking space junk? Like, wow, there is so much stuff up there.
Did I see the man who was going to be tracking that?
Did you see the man who is going to be tracking that?
I don't think so. Sorry, Janet. I'm not actually sure which man that would have been. Feel free to comment and let us know what that's about. But I don't think I've heard any news or seen anything more recently about space junk. But boy, it sure is a mess, isn't it? It's a shocking mess out there, but at least we are kind of starting to do something a little bit more about it now. Is there anything else we need to talk about in the chat? Yep, there is.
We've had an answer to the question you
Oh, hang on, sorry, let me just figure out my microphones here. Everything's a bit of a trial here. Okay, what have we got?
Okay, so Dominic Bunyan's answered the question that you had before about what that shock was.
Yeah.
He says it's a solar eclipse.
It is an eclipse. Let's go back and have a look at that picture.
And I've got two people that have said that too.
You got two people as well, Wendy, that have said it's a solar eclipse. Well, it is an eclipse. It's not the kind of eclipse that you would normally think of. So there's a couple of clues there. If you were seeing a solar eclipse from the Earth, you would expect the corona of the sun to be much bigger than that. That is actually an eclipse, but that's not the moon that is in front of it. Actually, I might just leave it at that for now and see if anyone else wants to have another stab at it. It's not the moon that is in front of it. Shall I give you another clue? This photo was not taken from Earth. There you go. It was not taken from Earth. It's somewhere else, and that is something else in front of the sun. Let us know if anyone else wants to have a stab at that. Good entries so far. Thank you. We'll keep going. Righto, let's talk about some spaceflight news. I think that's where we're up to, isn't it? We did the night sky stuff. We are ready to talk about some spaceflight stuff, starting off, of course, with our launch schedule. Now, we're not actually going to talk about this much tonight, so quickly I will say who wants to have a stab at what that rocket is on the left. It's not too difficult. I'm hoping that a few people will be able to tell me what rocket it is. If you want to have a go at what mission it is, feel free to have a go. But honestly, I'm not sure how you would know just looking at that photo. But it is something that we're going to talk about a little bit later. So let us know if you want to have a guess at what that rocket is. We've already got one, have we?
No, we've got Isaac Mason has said it's the Earth that's in the eclipse.
Ooh, that's a good guess, Isaac. The Earth, that is a good guess, but no. No, we'll keep going. Sorry, we were with our launch schedule. Now, as far as I know, unless I've missed something, the only real launch we had in the last week was this thing called SARGE. Now, that is it stands for Suborbital Autonomous Rocket with Guidance, which was launched by a private company in the States. It's a sounding rocket, so basically a test rocket, suborbital flight. It was launched from Spaceport America in New Mexico, so it's nice to see some activity happening there. I can't show you the video of it, unfortunately, because the video coverage was so absolutely shocking. I could not possibly, in good conscience, inflict it on you. It made me feel nauseous watching it. So, but let me describe it. It cleared the launch pad nicely. It went up quite high. Then we really just lost sight of it, kind of. But then it started wobbling around. It appeared to have a loss of attitude control, wobbled all over the place, and then crashed. So it did not go well, unfortunately. So, but it was a sounding rocket. It was a test rocket. That was the end of that, though. So nothing else to talk about with launches that have happened. And in fact, the launches that are coming up, we really have already covered. I think we've covered them all, really. So there's no point talking about them anymore, I don't think, because we've got lots of other stuff to talk about tonight. So I'm going to keep going. Just let me know, guys, if anyone else wants to have a guess at what that thing was. We've got another one, have we?
For the eclipse,
yep.
We've got 2 Earths.
2 Earths.
2 people think that it's Earth.
Oh, right, okay then. But it's not. It's not Earth. You guys are kind of on the right track. You just need to be thinking a bit wider, going a little bit further out, perhaps. We'll take another couple of guesses, and then if we still don't get it, I'll just let you know. So we want to talk about some other space news. Actually, I should quickly tell you what that rocket was, shouldn't I? That was launching. It was a Falcon 9, and I don't know if anyone got that, but I want to keep moving on. It was a Falcon 9, that part of it was pretty easy. It was carrying Tess, that we have mentioned before on the show, and we're going to mention again tonight. That is the, terrestrial, no, I've got the wrong, exoplanet survey satellite. Transiting, that's the word I was looking for. I always have trouble with Tess, I don't know why. Transiting exoplanet survey satellite. Anyway, we'll get back to it later, and I'll look on my notes and I'll make sure I've got all that right. So let's keep moving on. I want to talk about something that's happening on the International Space Station. So this is one of the experiments that's happening on the space station right now. And this is actually an experiment into Alzheimer's and other similar diseases. It's called the Ring Sheared Drop Experiment, and it's housed in the station's microgravity science glove box. So that thing you see there is a versatile container to be able to house different types of experiments in. And at the moment, it is housing this particular experiment. There's heaps of experiments on the space station. There's at any one time you'd have maybe 60-odd experiments there, and I really wish people knew more about them because there's a lot of really fascinating research happening. So what's the story with this one? So they are studying the formation of amyloid fibrils, which I know nothing about, so don't ask me any tricky questions about this one, but I can tell you that they are potentially destructive protein clusters like those found in the brain tissue of patients battling neurodegenerative diseases such as Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, etc. So researchers believe that these amyloid fibrils may be created by shear flow between adjacent layers of liquid. It all sounds very complicated, doesn't it? So you've got layers of liquid happening inside the brain and moving at different velocities, and that differential is somehow creating these fibrils that, as I say, I don't really know anything about. You'll have to go and consult Dr. Google about that. But the situation is that experiments into this on Earth have got a couple of problems, and they can't really do these experiments on Earth. So on Earth, this has to be housed in a container, and the liquids are touching the walls of the container, so that's affecting the experiment and how the liquid is flowing. And also you have convection, where the less dense liquid will float, will go higher. So these are problems created by gravity that you can't really get around anywhere on Earth. So the key is, when you've got an experiment like this that can't be done anywhere on Earth, you send it into space. So this is on board the International Space Station right now, and they are able to get rid of those issues like actually having it suspended so it's not touching the walls, and of course you don't have that same convection because you don't have gravity. So this is really exciting stuff. It's interesting and it's really important stuff. And as I say, I wish more people were aware of this kind of medical research, really important research that is going on board the International Space Station. It's not the first experiment into Alzheimer's that's been on the space station. I know there's been some others, but we look forward to the results from these experiments. Moving along, here is something rather different. You remember this beast? This is the US Air Force's unpiloted X-37B spacecraft. We mentioned it a while ago on the show because it had achieved a record, and it was reported as a record for a spaceship, and it's not quite right. It had passed its own record, but this is the secretive Orbital Test Vehicle, or OTV program from the United States Air Force, and we've really got no idea what's going on in there, so there's not much we can say about it because it's all very secret. But we do know that it landed back at Kennedy Space Center recently. We know it was the 5th flight of a vehicle like this. They're built by Boeing, and they are based on the same winged design as the Space Shuttle. It looks very similar to the Space Shuttle, but it's a lot smaller. Of course, it doesn't have to have people inside it, so you reduce obviously a lot of your weight and cost when you don't have people in there. So in fact, this thing fits inside the fairing of a Falcon 9 and was indeed launched on a Falcon 9 back in 2017. So look, if the Space Force ever happens, if Congress ends up approving the new Space Force thing, this is the kind of thing we would expect to go over to the Space Force. That's all we need to say about that. That's all we can say about that. We don't know anything else about it. A couple of other stories. I want to mention that Virgin Galactic. So this is the suborbital space tourism venture. It has gone public. Shares were just released yesterday, wasn't it? It went public. There's Richard Branson feeling very excited. I suspect that this was in the first few hours after it went public because the shares were down by the end of the day. I don't think he would have been quite that excited by them. So you can go and buy shares in Virgin Galactic if you want to. I'm not sure if I would or not. Luckily, I can't afford to, so I don't need to make that decision. Maybe if I was a wealthy person and I had a bit of money, I might throw some at it, but I think you'd have to be aware that they've had a lot of delays. I don't think they're getting a lot of love, to be honest, in terms of being an investment company. But anyway, I will leave that up to you, whether you want to go and throw a few dollars at Virgin Galactic or not. They're hoping to be launching next year, of course, with people, but of course, they have been saying that for quite a long time now. We've got another vehicle here to have a look at. Some of you will be familiar with this. I'm not sure if we've even talked about this on the show, the SABRE. So this is a really fascinating new engine and vehicle being developed by a UK company called Reaction Engines. So this is an air-breathing engine. Those engines you can see on the wings there, they pull in air so they can use the oxygen as part of their fuel mix effectively instead of having to carry that with them. So you're reducing the amount of weight by just taking that in as you go. So what happens is after it launches, it scoops air into those intakes there, and they will do that for about the first 25 kilometres, and at about 25 kilometres in altitude, it will then switch to the pure rocket mode for its final climb to orbit. But the big problem with this kind of thing is that the air is coming in so fast it gets really, really hot. So that's the big issue with this kind of engine. So this SABRE engine includes a pre-cooler to very, very quickly cool down the air so it can actually be usable without melting everything. So it's been in development for a long time. It's cost an arm and a leg. There's been a huge amount of money gone into this. But they are making steady progress with it, and the latest development is that they have managed to test it at heat equivalent of travelling at Mach 5, which is how fast it would need to travel. So you can see in the photo here, what they've got in the test setup here is they've actually just got a jet engine that fires the air into it at 1,000 degrees Celsius, goes through the system, and then the pre-cooler cools that air down very, very quickly so it can carry on through. And so, as I say, the vehicle itself will need to travel at up to Mach 5, and now they have tested it at that speed. So that's a really good result. That means that the system should theoretically work. In fact, I don't think there's a lot of controversy about the engine itself. As far as I'm aware, most people seem to be comfortable enough with the engine, but there is a bit of controversy about the whole vehicle, the whole proposal. as a useful economic vehicle to get into space. So there's a couple of things to note. For example, the payload bay is not very big. You look at that, it looks like a really big vehicle, but the payload bay is actually quite small in there. So I can't remember how big it is exactly, to be honest, but it's perhaps not quite as impressive as it looks, but still really innovative and well worth pursuing. I think even if it doesn't turn out to be economical, there's got to be a case for using those engines somewhere. So I'm not quite sure where they go from here. Still a long way to go before flight tests, I would imagine, but good to see that they have actually passed that very critical test of the testing that with the air at the full temperature. Righto, so another test. There's another test coming up. Let's look at this one. This is the Crew Dragon, SpaceX's Crew Dragon. This is the one with the anomaly. Remember the anomaly early in the year where it blew up on the test stand? So they've got a test coming up very soon now. In fact, it's on the 2nd of November. They are hoping to get its next test. So that will be a repeat of the test in which it blew up. So quite obviously, SpaceX will need this one to go right, because this is the one that's supposed to have people in it, getting people back to the International Space Station. It should go okay. The part that caused the explosion has been completely removed from the system, so you'd like to think it's going to go okay, but SpaceX will be obviously wanting a good result out of this one. Then, assuming that that does go okay, the next test will be an in-flight abort test, that's going to be really exciting. I can't wait for that one. That's the one where they launch the whole rocket with the capsule on top, then they simulate something going wrong with the rocket, and they actually blast the capsule off the top of it. So another critical test, and will absolutely have to go well, but we'll look forward to reporting on that one, hopefully with some good videos. And after that, they've got still actually a bunch of tests to do on their parachute system. They need to do about another 10 tests apparently on their parachute system. So certainly still a little bit of work to do yet on the Crew Dragon before it is ready to take people. And you might remember, I think it was last week, we talked about their Boeing. They've got their equivalent test coming up soon as well. So the two companies testing their capsules to get people back to the International Space Station. We are edging slowly closer and closer. Anything we need to talk about in the chat? We have got some stuff going on out there. What's happening out in Chatland?
Niels Ogle
says
for the eclipse, Mars. And Laura Efremova, sorry if I say it wrong, is it Pluto in line with Neptune?
It is Pluto. It is Pluto. Very well done. It was actually, hang on, let's go back and have a look at the picture again. Now this is actually Pluto, and that is the sun behind it, so it is an eclipse, but it's an eclipse with Pluto instead of the moon, and this was taken by New Horizons, that robotic space probe that went out there and got us our first ever close-up photos of Pluto. So it came from around behind it, I guess, from that angle, and this is after it had passed Pluto. It was just a flyby mission, so it flew past Pluto, then turned its cameras were already turned around by this stage, and facing back towards Pluto as it carried on out, basically out of our solar system. It went to have a look at something else. It's hoping to have a look at another couple of objects, but this is New Horizons' last look at Pluto before it sort of disappeared off out into the solar system. So well done, everyone. We got there. Mars was on the way, just not quite far enough, but we got there in the end. Well done. Where were we up to? We were talking about the SpaceX. We're still talking about SpaceX, actually. So this is to do with the Starlink satellite cluster. So Elon Musk sent a tweet actually through the Starlink system. So you know that they've already got some. They put that one batch of satellites up that we've talked about, and he put a tweet that went through that whole system, came back to Earth, and whoa, it worked. So he's pretty happy with that. Now SpaceX is planning to start offering internet services through their system in the US next year in 2020. So they're full steam ahead with this. That's going to require another 8 batches of satellites, so another 8 launches. And that's still only going to get them enough to have coverage in the States. That's all they'll be offering for now. To get global coverage, they're going to need 24 launches. And if you'll recall, they are hoping to have up to 42,000 of these satellites in orbit. And I just do not know how I feel about that. Not that good, actually. I do know how I feel about it. Not that good. But anyway, we all want faster internet access, don't we? So that was SpaceX. Now, you guys just butt in, if I need to be coming to you and talking about anything. Sorry if I'm ignoring you. Let's keep moving on, because we need to be moving out a little bit further now to the moon. Boeing has just released, which is not much more than this picture actually. That's pretty much all they dropped, was just a view of their proposal for a landing craft on the moon to support the Artemis lunar lander. We can't really say too much more about this because that's all they really showed us. I guess you could say that it's quite similar in its overall design to the original moon missions, the Apollo missions, in that there's 2 stages there. So the whole thing comes and lands, and then just the top part of it, that part there, will lift off. You can see these rockets down the bottom of it. Excuse my drawing. And so that will take people off again. So that's where Boeing is at. The link is in the show notes, but honestly, there's not much more information than what you can see there. We've got a couple of things to do with the moon here. NASA has just released some information about a new robotic rover that they are planning to send to the moon. So this is also part of the Artemis mission, but this will be in preparation for people going to the moon. This particular robot, which is about the size of a golf cart, this is heading to the south pole of the moon to map the location and concentration of water ice in that area of the moon. So they're hoping to land this in December 2022 and collect data for about 100 days. You may recall back in 2009, the L-Cross mission. Don't know how many of you remember that. That was when they had that impactor. So that went to the south pole of the moon. And it did land, but it was an impact. It wasn't a soft landing. So they just fired it towards the moon into one of the craters and then examined all the plumes, all the dust and debris that came up. And they did determine that there was water in the craters at the south pole of Mars. So now this is the next stage to go there and learn more about where all the water is and hopefully how accessible it is, etc. Did I say Mars? Yes. Oh, I'm sorry about that. Thank you for that. That's why I have these people here. Keep an eye on me. I meant the moon. I do this all the time. Like, honestly, every time I go back and look at the show, every single week I'm embarrassed by getting words wrong and saying stupid stuff. And I actually spend a lot of time thinking, should I go and correct myself next week? But then it wasn't that important. And hopefully you guys are all intelligent enough to figure it out. But thank you. Keep doing that. Keep me on my toes. I wish I didn't do it, but yeah, that's life, I suppose. The Israelis are planning to get back to the moon again. Remember the Bereshit mission? Of course you do. This is the one that crash landed. Now, you may remember that after that, they announced that the mission was a big success in their eyes and they didn't need to go back and try this again, so they were going to go somewhere else. They have since announced that no, they are actually going to go back to the moon and essentially try this mission again. They're hoping to launch a new version of this mission within the next 2 years. I don't know what happened to whatever other target that they said they had. There was no mention of that, so I guess that's just on the back burner for now. Now, the guy from the Indian Space Research Organisation that announced this did talk a little bit about the trade-off of doing a cheap mission, because, of course, this mission was done a very low budget for a mission like this, but there are compromises when you do that. For example, he mentioned that they really didn't have redundancy in their system. So if something goes wrong, typically with a NASA mission, you would have backup systems and something to take over, hopefully. But on this mission, they didn't really have anything. So when something goes wrong, that's kind of the end of the mission. You can get to the moon much more cheaply if you go much more slowly, which is what this mission did. But that means that your spacecraft is spending a lot more time in the radiation environment, and so that's giving it more chance of radiation damage before you get there. So there's a big payoff doing things on the cheap. But I suspect that they could probably afford a few of these missions for the price of one similar NASA mission. So I don't expect to hear much more about that for a while, as they say, launching perhaps within the next couple of years.
That's an Israeli mission?
Well, yeah, it's a private company, actually, but...
You said the Indian.
Oh, you're kidding. Did I?
Yes, you did.
I should go home.
Israeli.
Yeah. Do you want to come and take over? I'm sorry about that. I meant Israeli. Sorry. Keep at me. Keep on my case. Okay.
It started with I anyway.
Okay. Let's see if we can get the next one right. This is also about the moon. Now, this was, there's a web page here. I wasn't actually going to mention this, but Alan Little, thank you for pointing this one out to me. This was a little bit of a different take on this one. So this was actually something that we did mention a little while ago. This is on the moon by China. Right, okay, so Chinese mission on the moon. Now you may recall that their Yutu-2 lander that was on the dark side of, the far side of the moon, I should say, found some an interesting substance there that was widely referred to as a gel-like substance, but that was more what it looked like. I don't think anyone actually thought it was a gel, but Alan pointed out these, or this tweet here, the link's in the show notes, where we can see some closer images, and this person has done a bit of image processing. So this is false color here, but to try and bring out a little bit of the detail of this weird looking substance to try and figure out exactly what is going on. As I understand it, the long and the short of it is that it is looking like it was created by some form of impact, which is kind of what people were speculating right from the start. But the Chinese have not... China, yes, it was China. The Chinese have not yet released any scientific papers or anything, and only these compressed images. So we don't really know much yet. It's still quite a bit of speculation. We'll really need to wait until we've got some scientific papers to know more about that. Right, now we're ready to move out to Mars. We've got another update on Mars InSight. So remember last week we talked about this, the problems that the InSight lander is having on Mars with the thing that I called what did I call it? The drilling thing or something? And I said its official nickname was the mole, but I couldn't remember what the technical name for the instrument was. I can now tell you it is called the Heat Flow and Physical Properties Package, or HP3. So this is the thing that is supposed to be hammering into Mars several meters down to measure the temperature. And last week we saw a sequence of images where it went from sort of sticking out quite a long way, and it managed to get a few centimeters into the ground, and we noted that it's not all over yet, and we were hoping that it would continue to hammer its way further into the ground. This week NASA has released another few images, and we can see here what actually did happen in the ensuing days since our last show. There. Oh, whoops. That's the wrong direction. That's not what's supposed to be happening. It's supposed to be going down. Down means towards the middle of the planet. That's going the other way. So unfortunately, that did not go well. Yeah, bummer. So yeah, that's a little bit upsetting. So the press release, or the update from the NASA team, was just basically saying, okay, look, let's take a few days and see if we can figure out what's happened now. But really not much good news on that front at all, so that's a bit of a shame. Hopefully we'll get back with an update. I need to keep moving along. So still on Mars, we have got a beautiful new selfie taken by the Curiosity rover. A gorgeous image, very high resolution. This doesn't do it justice. I've got the link in the show notes if you want to go and download the whole thing. Honestly, you could print a fairly large poster from this one, I think. An absolutely beautiful image. So this was taken by Curiosity on October the 11th, which was the 2,553rd Martian day that Curiosity has been on Mars. So a Martian day we refer to as a SOL, S-O-L. So this is SOL 2553 at a place called Glen Etive. I think I've pronounced that correctly. So there you go. There's a couple of things to note in here. Well, one thing in particular, if you'll note over here, there's a couple of holes. Can you see them? Those are drill holes. So Curiosity has drilled a couple of holes in there, and they give them names. Everything gets a name on Mars, honestly. Little wee pebbles, a hole, yeah, that gets a name. So these are just called Glen Etive 1 and Glen Etive 2 on the right and the left, respectively. So what happens is the Curiosity drills into there, it powderizes the samples, and then it can pick them up and pop them into its little mobile laboratory in its own belly. And that lab has a name. It's called the Sample Analysis at Mars, or SAM for short, and so it can figure out what the stuff is made of and do some chemical tests and whatnot and send that information back to Earth. Nice. Now, every time I show a picture like this, someone will ask me, how did it take that photo? If it's a selfie, how did it do that? In fact, I see this a lot on memes from flat earthers and people who think that space is fake as evidence that we are lying about this. Now, what happens is that it actually has a robotic arm that you can't see in this picture. It protrudes from down here. But that's been removed from the image. And what it does is it puts its arm out and takes a whole bunch of photos, and then they get stitched together. This image was actually made up from 57 individual images, and I thought it would actually be useful this time to go and find the raw images, because NASA they don't publicize the raw images really, and I'll show you why, because they just kind of look like this. I managed to go and find them myself. If you're interested, I've put a link in the show notes where you can go to the archive of all the raw images coming from Mars that they used to put all of these together. So 57 of those images were put together to make that one selfie. So that is how they make those beautiful pictures. So there you go. It's a very common question, that one. Before we leave Curiosity, here's another picture of it from space this time, taken by the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter. So you can see it there doing its mission as it gets around on Mars. Okay, now we're still with Mars. Then we might just have a quick look at the chat after that and see if there's anything happening. Where did I put it? I've got a quick update here on the Mars 2020 mission that we're all very excited about. This is just another quick update, really. This is a test to have the rover stand on its own wheels for the first time. This is a time-lapse video. Let's just roll that, and we can see all the engineers there in the clean room just very gently lowering it down just to make sure that everything is working as expected, that it can take its own weight and there's no unexpected surprises there. And there we go. That is Mars 2020. We'll just go back here and have another quick look at it. Getting ready, just one more test that it has passed. Now the wheels are made of aluminium. The legs there are made of titanium. These wheels, the wheels on here are actually just engineering models. They will be replaced by the final wheels, I think, early next year. The launch date is July next year. That is what's happening there. Each of these wheels has their own motor, but the wheels at the front and the back have their own independent steering motors, so that the whole craft can actually turn around 360 degrees on the spot. So there you go. That is what is happening with the Mars 2020. We're looking forward to that mission. And that is all we want to say about Mars. Anything we need to say about what's happening in the chat and stuff?
Neil
Okay.
says, had a long day, Dave.
I have had a long day, actually. It's been a good day. We had a big group of people in here earlier on today, and then as soon as they went, I was just panic, trying to get ready for tonight. And I didn't have a run-through or anything tonight. So anyway, never mind. It's all good. You have another comment out there?
From me.
Oh, yeah.
It's comment question type thing. All the preparation to go to the moon this time, did they do anything like this sort of preparation when they very first walked on the moon?
That's a really good question, isn't it? Because they had a short time frame. Well, certainly they did do a lot of preparation. I think the big differences, if I could think of two main differences between what happened with the Apollo missions and what's happening with the Artemis, is one, money was no object back then. That's a big difference. So that they, I think it got up to close to 5% of the entire federal budget there for a while, the Apollo. So NASA doesn't get anything like that kind of money now. So that opens up all sorts of doors, obviously, when you've got the money. The other thing is that we are much more risk averse now. So, we had the Apollo fire, for example, that killed 3 people, and it did slow the program down, but not by much. They were back in action pretty quickly after that. But then look what's happened since. When we've had the shuttle disasters, for example, that shut down the entire program for years. So, we are much less willing to risk people dying these days. So I think those would be the two big differences between then and now. Was that everything? Okay, we're running short of time again. Let me see if I can speed things up a little bit. This is an asteroid. Asteroid Hygeia, we've just got, so this asteroid was actually discovered way back in 1849, but we've never had high resolution images of it before. Now with some new images taken by the Very Large Telescope in Chile, it has revealed its structure for the first time, and it turns out to be much more spherical than we thought it would. Now that means that it's a possible candidate to be classed as a dwarf planet. It would actually be the smallest dwarf planet we've discovered so far, at about 430 kilometres across. So yeah, the criteria for a dwarf planet is a little bit, well actually no, the criteria I guess is reasonable. So to be called a dwarf planet, it has to orbit the sun directly, i.e. not be a moon of another planet. It has to be roughly spherical, which this one is, but has not cleared its orbit, which would make it an actual planet. So this one is potentially going to be referred to as a dwarf planet, but there's still a lot of controversy about exactly what is referred to as a dwarf planet. We don't actually have a clear set of these are dwarf planets and those aren't. There's still too much argument about it. Right, I'm going to remember all the links for these things are in the show notes. But I want to keep moving on. There's another story about a new type of storm that has been discovered on Saturn. This is just a link to the paper if you want to read about it. In fact, the only thing I will say about this now, because we need to keep moving on, is that a lot of news outlets are referring to this image along with the story. But actually, this is not a good image to be using with that story. What they found is a new type of storm that is sort of in between the two types of storms that we already knew about on Saturn. So one type of storm on Saturn that we already knew about was quite small, around about 2,000 kilometres wide, which is a bit more than the length of New Zealand, to put it in perspective. So that's a small storm on Saturn. And then there are the really big ones known as great white spots, and that's what this one is. The new type of storm is somewhere in between, but we don't have any good images of it. So obviously all these news places have just used this image instead. So just be aware that's not actually the type of storm that they are talking about. Righto, so I think that was all the stuff from our solar system. We need to talk a little bit about dark matter. These are a few updates that really, it gets a little bit quite heady, some of the stuff. But the first story here is referring to the super spiral galaxy. Now, so a super spiral galaxy is a galaxy that, like the Milky Way is a spiral galaxy, but these ones have 10 to 20 times the amount of visible matter that the Milky Way has. Now, some new observations of these galaxies have shown that they are rotating much faster than we would have predicted based on their visible size. Now, the implication here is that there is a lot more dark matter, or a higher proportion of dark matter. That's the key here. It seems that these galaxies have a higher proportion of dark matter than what we were expecting. What does that mean? Who knows? Who knows what's going on with the dark matter? No idea. So I was going to try and blab on about that one, but I will just leave that up to you to figure out if you can make any sense out of that one. Because there's a couple of other things here that we really want to talk about. You might have seen this headline, Cosmic Yeti from the Dawn of the Universe. What is that all about? It's a strange term, isn't it? The Cosmic Yeti. Well, they're actually talking about... Well, let's go back a little bit. So astronomers have been puzzled by certain types of massive galaxies that are apparently quite mature, but seen in the early stages of the universe. And they kind of just seem to appear out of nowhere, which didn't really seem to make a lot of sense. Now with these new observations, it seems the reason could be that they were actually obscured by dust, and then they when the dust dissipates, I guess, I'm not really quite sure, and that's why they suddenly seem to appear out of nothing. So it's not that they are suddenly developing or evolving, it's just that they were doing it at a more reasonable pace, but being hidden, and now we can see them. So these were found using the ALMA, or Atacama Large Millimeter Array, which is a collection of 66 radio telescopes, again in Chile. Now, I should point out a couple of things. That's an artist's impression that you're looking at there. We don't actually have any images of these things. And another thing is that the James Webb Space Telescope will be an ideal instrument to be looking at these, at this sort of thing. That's exactly what we are hoping to be able to observe a lot more closely. So there you go. That is that one. I'm just thinking, should we do a quick reminder of our competition? Have we had many entries in the competition? A few, maybe. Anyway, the question was, when will we figure out what dark matter is? So give it your best guess. Tell us what you think. And if you don't know anything about dark matter, it doesn't matter. Just have a stab when you think we might finally make some progress on there. Right, here's another story. A crisis in cosmology. I don't know if I quite would have used that term, but this is related to the ongoing question of how fast the universe is expanding, and has it been expanding more quickly or more slowly in the past? Look, to be honest, I think I'll just let you go and read the link in the show notes if you're interested in this. I guess just to very quickly summarize it, a new measurement of the Hubble constant, which is the expansion rate of the universe, to look at these gravitationally lensed quasar systems. The new results are agreeing with what we have seen more locally, close to the Earth or close to the Milky Way, but not with the measurements of the cosmic microwave background. So I don't know if it really helps us much, but at least it's more data, and we're just sort of slowly edging closer to maybe getting enough information to have a stab at what's really going on here. A crisis in cosmology, I mean, basically what they're getting at here is that there are different sets of observations that are not agreeing with each other, so there is a problem. I don't like to use the word crisis. I think it's an opportunity. There's a line of investigation here. We've got some clues. There's a disparity here, so that's a way to investigate it further. I know a lot of people that don't like mainstream science use this kind of thing as an example to suggest that we don't know what we're doing because we can't figure this out. But that's what science is all about. There's lots of things that we don't understand, and this is just a slow process to try and get us closer and closer to the actual real answers. So here's another story from way out in the universe. First identification of a heavy element born from neutron star collision. So what's happening here? For the first time, scientists have detected newly formed heavy elements in space, specifically strontium, which is a heavy element, and this was made in a collision between two neutron stars. So why is this important? So we already knew that most elements are made by sort of normal stars and supernovae, right? So it happens before a star goes supernova, but also during that process of going supernova, a star will create a lot of the heavier elements, heavier than hydrogen, helium, and lithium. But there's always been less confidence about the very heavy elements, heavier than iron, for example. So what they're finding here is that this is direct evidence of the formation of strontium being made when two neutron stars collide. So this process of making these very heavy elements is believed to require a process known as rapid neutron capture, where atoms need to be able to take on a whole lot of neutrons to be able to turn themselves into heavier elements, and that can only happen in a really extreme environment where there are lots of neutrons, for example, a collision between two neutron stars. There you go. Now, interestingly enough, this also confirms, I believe for the first time, at least according to these scientists, that there are neutrons in neutron stars. That might come as a surprise to you. You might think, isn't that the point of a neutron star? It's made of neutrons. That's what I thought. And it was actually news to me to hear that we weren't actually completely confident about that, or we didn't know for sure. So these guys at least are saying that this is our first confirmation that there are neutrons in neutron stars. There we are. So that was all the news about sort of dark matter and early universe kind of stuff. There's a couple of other stories that I quickly want to go over here, though. This one will be of interest to anyone who is interested in the issue of light pollution. Flagstaff, Arizona is an area which is quite astronomy friendly, and they've been working very hard to try and minimize light pollution with the introduction of new LED lights. So as you've probably noticed in your own town or city, the old kind of street lights, like the sodium lights, are being replaced by more efficient LED lights, which certainly have some advantages. For one thing, they're a lot more directional, so you're not spilling so much light straight up into the sky. They do point down more. But you may have also noticed, as we have in our street at home, that the new LED lights tend to be this glary blue, which is actually pretty nasty for looking at the sky. In fact, our street, now that we've got the LED lights in, is worse. than when it had the old sodium lights. So the problem is that the blue lights are the efficient lights that kind of seem to make sense to use, but they have some other disadvantages. They're not actually good in a bunch of ways. It's not just looking up at the sky. I believe there are health implications. You know how there's a big move now to reduce the amount of blue light that you're exposed to when you're going to bed, because it makes you think it's the middle of the day and it's not nighttime. So your phone might go a warmer colour at nighttime. And so these guys are looking at, or have looked at, different kinds of LED lights that they can use. The problem is, of course, that the blue lights are the efficient one, and other colours of LED lights have various problems. I believe they tried out a green one, which wasn't too bad, but when they all went out at night under these green lights, they said it made the whole scene look like a scene from a zombie apocalypse. Or people looked green. And it made all the surroundings look really eerie and unnatural. So that didn't really go so well. But anyway, go check out the article if you're interested in this, because in the end it was quite promising. And I hope that we can find a compromise between the most efficient kind of light, which is really, of course, is what we all want, but lights that are also less light polluting, because light pollution clearly has a lot of problems of its own, environmental and health problems, not just stargazing. Last story that I think I'm going to mention. Oh, no, actually, no, there's two more that I wanted to do. Let's just quickly mention this. Did you know that a majority of UK adults don't know the name of our galaxy? That does not surprise me at all, actually. That's pretty consistent with my experience. And I think, Mum, when we do our school groups and things like that, and we ask people who knows the name of our galaxy, I think 50% would be a pretty good effort, to be honest. It would be unusual for more than 50% of people to know the name of our galaxy. But all you guys out there do, you all knew that, of course, didn't you? And you are all out there spreading the word and helping to educate people. Most people, in fact, I often say this when we're talking to our school groups, most people I meet don't know the difference between a solar system, a galaxy, and the universe. And people use those terms interchangeably all the time, so it's certainly not surprising. In fact, even one of our the exercises that we do out here on our public days, one of the activities asks you what is the name of our galaxy, and you can kind of see over there is you can see the Milky Way over there, and it's all there, but people still write down solar system as the name of our galaxy, and all sorts of other strange answers. So, yeah, not really much of a surprise there. Right, anything else we want to talk about in the chat before I do my last story? We're all happy? Okay then, so look, I think the last thing I'm going to talk about here, this could have come under the effect, let's put it in the category of the truth is out there, but it's not really about, well, it's not about UFOs, but it is about aliens. I want to talk just briefly about this outfit called Breakthrough Initiatives. You may have heard of this organisation. It's a privately funded organisation founded by Stephen Hawking, Mark Zuckerberg's in on this, amongst others whose names I forget, sorry, but this is they've got a bunch of initiatives, and one of the things that they do is searching for signals from extraterrestrials. So what's happened is that they are teaming up with NASA's TESS mission, which is the one that we talked about earlier. That was I mentioned that was the one that was launched aboard the Falcon 9 right when we were looking at our launch schedule. So they are teaming up, so this private organisation is teaming up with the satellite that is looking at exoplanets. So the TESS mission, actually let's quickly have a look at that satellite. This is the TESS satellite before it was launched, and the objective of this satellite is to go out there and use the transit method. So when you've got a star out there and you see a planet going in front of it, you can observe that planet and learn a whole lot about it. So what's going to happen is that the TESS mission is going to be passing on likely candidates for the Breakthrough Initiatives people to go and study more closely using telescope time from other telescopes so that they can try and find ET. So they're hoping that the TESS mission will pass on about 1,000 objects of interest to the Breakthrough Initiatives people for them to go and check more closely. Now, the Breakthrough Initiatives people have already examined a bunch of objects, including actually Oumuamua and, what was it called, Borisov, Comet Borisov, that we talked about just recently, those interstellar visitors that came through our solar system. So it's a serious organisation. They've got some money behind them, privately funded, so don't worry, your taxpayers' money is not going towards this. and hopefully they will have a very productive relationship. So I will just point out with the TESS mission, there's a couple of things worth noting there. I'm actually just going to go back first of all to the Kepler mission, which is sort of the predecessor to this. That was the mission that found a whole lot of exoplanets. It was another mission designed to use the transit method. But if you see on the graphic here where we are, the Kepler mission was only studying in that very quite narrow range. So it's only looking at that one part of the sky. Whereas the TESS mission, if we look at this graphic, is actually examining, I think, about 85% of the entire sky. So really opening it up to find exoplanets from all over the place. So those are all the individual sections that it is going to be observing, 26 different observation sectors. And I think that is all we needed to say about the TESS mission. Now, if you want to have a look at the show notes, I've got another couple of suggested links there, which I'll just mention quickly. One of them is Eat Like a Martian. If you want to get ready for your trip to Mars, you can go there and figure out what food you will be needing to eat when you are on Mars and plan your diet accordingly. Another one also related to Mars was a really interesting YouTube video about a Mars greenhouse, which is something that we are quite interested in here. We actually had a test version, an experimental Mars greenhouse in one of the back rooms down here for a while, but I thought this was a really innovative, interesting design for a greenhouse on Mars. I'll let you go and check that out. I think we have got to the end of all the news things we wanted to talk about. I'm going to have a quick look on our chat here and see that Facebook has still completely failed us. Now, Black Diamond is asking, how did it get that name? The Milky Way? Would he be Milky something? Sorry. Well, if you're talking about the Milky Way, that came back from basically when you look at the Milky Way, it kind of looks like a white band of stars going through space, and if you're in a very nice, clear, dark sky, it actually kind of looks like a road going through the sky, and the original meaning meant road of milk. So that's where that came from. I'm not sure if that is actually what you were referring to then, Black Diamond. What else? The other thing was Yeti, that funny Yeti thing. What was that all about? That was a strange one, actually. The name Yeti for that kind of galaxy that they were talking about, as far as I can gather, just came from the fact that some people thought they existed but didn't have any good photos of it, kind of like a Yeti. Okay, a little bit of a stretch there, guys, but fair enough. That's how they came to that name, apparently. So just let us know in the next 30 seconds if we have completely missed the point of your question there. Did anyone else have any other comments or things that they wanted to talk about out there? Because it is 8 o'clock, it's actually 8:02, and it is time that you guys really should be getting outside. Let's have a quick look at, we'll go back to Stellarium over here. Just give me a sec, because what I will do is I will put it back to now. So that's what it's looking like outside, more or less, right now, if you go outside. So we can still see the glow from the sun, but you should be able to see definitely Venus will be out there. Yeah, it kind of looks a bit cloudy here, unfortunately, but you should hopefully be able to see Mercury just above and to the left of Venus. And those other things that we talked about earlier. So there we go. I think that is pretty much a wrap for tonight. So, the competition. It's a good thing you guys came along tonight, isn't it? How are we going with the competition? Okay, I think you guys, you're looking set to pull a name out of the hat for the competition. So yeah, just go for your life. Now, whoever wins the competition, just drop us, you'll need to drop us your postal address. I think this one gets posted out to you, or maybe if you could email us, give us your email address and your postal address. Now, there's lots of raucous noise happening out there in the crowd, because what's happened?
I've got 4 arms.
He's got 4 arms.
Gina's doing this sort of
Right, we're all having lots of fun here tonight.
On Fortnite.
What was that, sorry?
Sleepy jalapenos on Fortnite.
I still didn't really catch that.
Sleepy jalapenos on Fortnite.
Won the competition.
Sorry, that's the username. Okay, then, apologies for that. Okay, thank you for reading that. So, Sleepy Jalapenos on Fortnite. Yeah, you need to get hold of us and let us know how we can get your prize to you. Now, what I think about it, really badly behind in my emails and a few other tasks. I'm so sorry. I've got to be honest with you. I'm really, really struggling to keep up with what's happening with the show. That's why we went to fortnightly for a while. But I had to go back to weekly because our statistics were tanking so badly that I thought the show was not going to last another month if we carried on. So anyway, that's the situation. I'm doing my best to try and catch up with the situation with prizes and emails and outstanding messages and such. So thank you for your patience. We're still going to keep going weekly. It's weekly or nothing. Okay, we've decided that things just went so badly when we were fortnightly that it's weekly or nothing. So with that, I'm going to thank our studio audience for coming and helping us tonight. Thank you everyone for your help. How did it go using those computers over there? Did we have any luck with it? Okay, we'll persevere with this. And we will see you all again back here, same time next week. Good night, everyone.